So if I have the old book,
Yeah.
what can I expect different in this new one?
During the first version of this guidebook, the Wisconsin DNR didn't allow climbing at Rattlesnake Mound. We had to pull that information literally as we were sending the book to print. We have now, because the Wisconsin Climber Association gained access for bouldering at those places, we have added them back into the guidebook, so there's a new area. We've obviously updated all of the grades, cleared up some confusion about the Raven stand. It's not really a boulder problem, we just cleared it up in the description. And have just updated all the projects that have been sent, the Watchtower, a number of other ones in Minnesota, with their grades and corresponding first ascents.
So let's just talk like how the book functions. So if I've never been to San
If you never, yeah, I think if you're a Midwestern climber, and that goes, when I say the Midwest, I mean from the Big Ten states, and you're looking for a complete guide to bouldering, this is as close as it's going to get. The only areas that are not included are areas which do not have guaranteed access for the next 5 years. So you'll note a lot of the Minnesota stuff does not include Duluth, because many of those areas are on private property or in property in question. But this guide will give you access to all open areas in the state of Minnesota and Wisconsin, and give you clear guides to how to get there from Talus Fields of Devil's Lake to the forest of Sawmill, hiking directions, best ofs. And the cool thing about the book is that one side is Minnesota, and then in the center of the book at Taylor's Falls, which borders both states, it flips to Wisconsin, and Wisconsin is on the opposite side. So if you're a Wisconsin climber and you're just wanting the Wisconsin half, we kind of envision this as eventually they'll break up into 2 books and be separate, but for now we've contained them together for ease of use, and for most Midwestern climbers who are dodging the weather and finding best conditions depending on latitude, this kind of has everything all in one. One other update that we did that I think is important to note is we've updated a lot of the overviews to consolidate them and make them more cohesive in the Minnesota side, so that it's directional finding, and we've taken some feedback from users to like make finding areas easier than it has been in the past.
What would you say to like someone new using the book, like how to find accessible stuff,
Yeah.
tips and tricks? Do I do the star? Do I go to the index? Like,
Myself and the other authors have put a ton of effort into these highlight sections or best ofs. The highlight section is really the best place to go. Our star system is a little different. We've tried to remove a lot of subjectivity out of the stars and just make it like if you're traveling from around the world to come to this area, if you're traveling from the nation, if you're traveling from in-state, if you're in an area or you're near a zone, you can kind of find each boulder based off the stars. That's explained really clearly in the opening section. But for these highlight areas, they only contain the 3, 4, and 5-star problems. So like as you're looking of, oh, I'm going to travel to Sawmill this weekend, the weather looks really good, I can review and say, oh, I climb V9 and there's 2 boulders. One's on page 54, one's on page 51. That'll give you clear directions on how to get there. And they're both 3 stars, Foreplay and Seamstress. There's a 4-star V10 wood chipper. Oh, I want to try that one too. All the way down to like the Luscious Lip. Kind of can like hone in my warm up all the way up to my projects.
so I think a lot of people are curious about what goes into a guidebook. So who's behind the guidebook and how do you make something this thick happen?
The guidebook started in was originally just the Minnesota Bouldering Guidebook, and that started in like 2015, I think. And that included Taylor's Falls, Sawmill, the Louisville Swamp, I think. I don't actually remember what was in the first guidebook. I think it might have just been Taylor's Falls and Sawmill.
Swamp, and then
Louisville Swamp. Was that in the first guidebook?
And the one that's closed.
Oh, and Swedes Forest. Then after we released that book, Swedes Forest, the Minnesota DNR said the scientific natural areas are unclimbable. So we had to update, and we talked about doing an update. When you're writing a guidebook, especially the first one, this story actually goes farther back. I got the original guidebook info from a guy named Stefan Bauer. He took an old guide called Bounce and Swim of Taylor's Falls, added a lot of the new boulders they had added, and started developing a guidebook that he never published, but would walk around Taylor's Falls with a 3-ring binder that had all the information in it. Through a number of conversations, I said, I'm thinking about doing a guide. I would love your information. And he gave it to me for free, and it was awesome because we used a bunch of that information. Throughout the year, though, we had to go back and rewrite because a lot of the descriptions weren't included. It just was like what the problems were. So people like Richard Cargill, even Tyler Thermes, who's not listed as an author, had to go climb every boulder and figure out where they started and what the line was. And based off rough descriptions on Mountain Project, or actually no, Mountain Project wasn't even up to date. It just was like random hearsay of what the problems were. We had to sort out fact from fiction there. For Sawmill, it was a lot easier. I contained a lot of the information, so I literally went out to Sawmill multiple trips and would draw out the boulders and start labeling what was what based off the knowledge I had had from that community. I was fortunate enough to start my climbing career with like some of the most prolific developers of the time, Jim Murley, Brian Camp, a number of others, and I knew kind of what was what around there. And then as I grew as a climber, I started doing more developing, and as that development happened, I just had this stuff written down anyway. So it just kind of became a natural place of sharing it. And then it wasn't until meeting Pi, who is an amazing graphic designer, pretty organized, which is one of my skills I lack, and like his effort to like first launch the original Minnesota guide, and then we decided to do the Minnesota and Wisconsin guide, and working with another climber, Peter Bonamucci, who also wanted to do a guide, and we combined our guides together to be a complete guide. We have always envisioned this to continue to grow, and the goal of this, for those of you out there purchasing the book, is like, this is not a money-making endeavor. Like, I think our total profits to this point are like $0. We've been really fortunate to like pay for this book based off the proceeds of the last one. We want to continue that model because we're trying to share as much information to make climbing in the Midwest both sustainable with our natural resources and our park systems, and grow the community as large as each area can support. This may not be the last guide. Hopefully it's not the last guide, but it could be. So if you don't have a copy of the first, we were shocked by the amount of people that purchased them. Like, we sold out very quickly as you look at the scale of sellouts. And I imagine this will sell out just as far. I've never had more people stop and ask me if they can buy a guidebook. And we truly have no like, I have one personal copy at my house left, so.
What's excited about?
That it's done, and it's more complete than it was. That it just has more information. And I don't think we could do another book that possesses as much information as this one does, without breaking it out into 2 books. There's no other main area. If you're a climber in the Midwest, there's no area that's not in this book that you need to climb at. There are a bunch of small sporadic areas, but for like the core climber, the core gym climber, who's like just getting into outdoors, this literally is a lifetime of climbing and experiences that I'm excited to share with everyone.